Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurial Musician, a coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM225 entitled Fear of the Future. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Some of you are watching this before it actually gets released because I'm trying something brand new. I am streaming to the Entrepreneurial Musician Facebook page as well as to my Andrew Hitz Artist page. If this works, I may do it. Although I already started that live stream and then started reading the intro and forgot to hit record. But luckily, I figured that out before I even got to reading the title. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. I wanted to let you know that in January, just in time for New Year's resolutions and the like, I am going to be launching a number of TEM classes and workshops, so you can stay tuned there. And also be sure to check out the still relatively new YouTube channel that is up. It's up on YouTube. Where else would my YouTube? I've decided I'm hosting my YouTube channel on Snapchat. No, you would find that on YouTube. Anyway, to get to the episode, TEM 225, Fear of the Future. Seth Godin mentions, he warns of, quote, being blinded by an attachment to the present and a fear of the future in his amazing book, Linchpin, which I just read for, I believe, the fourth time. And actually, a number of upcoming episodes are going to be based on thoughts that I had while rereading that classic book. But what a powerful line that is. Being blinded by an attachment to the present and a fear of the future. Let's break that down a little bit. Blinded by an attachment to the present. I quote tweeted someone recently that said what sounds like good advice but isn't, and I mentioned the famous Vince Lombardi quote, quitters never win and winners never quit. And I actually did a Facebook live stream about that last week. That is still up at facebook.com/TEM coaching. And I'm also going to link to it in the show notes, which you can always find at tem.fm. In short, that's the worst piece of advice that I've ever heard in my entire life. Quitting things is absolutely essential. In the sixth grade, I quit basketball in order to have more time to pursue music. The quitters never win advice would still have me playing basketball at the age of 45, which is stupid. Seeing as how I took like a short 3 mile hike yesterday, and I woke up and my legs were like, "Yep, we did some stuff yesterday." I think if I had played a basketball game yesterday, then yeah, they would be have even more opinions about things. It's all about quitting the right thing at the right time. That's the key. And again, I talked at length about this in that Facebook Live, so you can check that out if you want to hear a long list of things that I quit that were all 100% the right call. But the whole reason we are susceptible to believing a stupid quote like that in the first place is because of our attachment to the present. This is why we have such a hard time leaving jobs that aren't fulfilling. I thought about leaving Boston Brass for a few years before I actually did, even though in retrospect it was clear that it would have been best for me and the band to have left at any point during that stretch. I'm going to talk about that some more here moving forward. But like, I had a really hard time, and I had some really well-intentioned people telling me, you can't leave a job like that. And they were doing absolutely what they thought was best for me, but that's just an example. This is why it is so difficult to bail on a project that is no longer the best path forward for us. I can't tell you how many projects I have that have stalled, meaning that nothing has happened in over a year. And I firmly believe that if I wasn't attached to the present, like me telling myself or being able to tell other people that that project is a part of my portfolio career, that I would almost surely cut bait and just move on. But again, I'm attached to that version of the present. That yeah, that is one of the things that I do. But I can tell you until I'm blue in the face that I do a thing, and then you're like, "Oh, do you actually do it?" And I say, "No." It's like, well, then okay, so then you tell people you do it, or that people could be yourself. You tell yourself that you do that, but you don't do it. So why are we attached to the present? it's pretty simple. It's because we have a fear of the future. While the writing was on the wall that being in a band that toured the world 6 months a year had been taking its toll on me for a number of years towards the end, there was always that nagging voice saying, how can you give up all of that income? To be honest, that's a serious gig, and I haven't replaced all of that income, but I have replaced a whole bunch of it in doing some things that I never did before. Other things I've done more of than I had the ability to when I was on the road so much. And I'm also getting paid in ways that are other than just direct monetization of things. I go hiking in the mountains every week with my son, and we used to visit the Smithsonian museums almost 100 times a year before he hit kindergarten and obviously pre-COVID-19. As in, we averaged 2 visits a week for a number of years in a row. That might not be what your definition of success looks like, but it absolutely is mine. I'm also not on the road so much. So when I get a call some random morning asking if I can play one more time with Lin-Manuel Miranda for a TV audience of over 6 million people at the Kennedy Center Honors, I get to say yes. I don't get to say, wow, I'm actually going to be gone for the first 2 days of rehearsal, so I can't do that, because you can't, that was one of the rules with Boston Brass, and it was a good one, was we were all in. That was the number one priority for all five of us, shy of, short of kids being born or weddings, or a death in the family. And those first two are planned way in advance, and a death in the family, we only had a couple of those that happened, luckily, during the 14 years I was in the band. Other than that, you're all in. You can't say, well, I got this really sweet gig, so there needs to be a sub. It didn't work that way. So I used to have to turn down so many gigs because I was on the road. I don't have to do that anymore. I was afraid that my instrument sponsor, XO Brass and Jupiter Band Instruments, would no longer want me on their roster potentially once I was no longer touring with Boston Brass. They have been as supportive of me as ever, financially and otherwise. And it turns out, after speaking to them, that that was never in doubt, but that voice was in my head. I had a fear that I would desperately miss playing all those concerts and that it would leave a hole in my life. That fear turned out to be true, but with a big if. I seriously didn't miss them even a little bit until COVID hit, and now I desperately want to be in a brass quintet again, or in a brass chamber group of some kind, but it took almost 7 years and a global pandemic for me to truly miss it. And that's not because I didn't love the gig. I did. It's that I played like well over 1,000 brass quintet gigs with Boston Brass, like well over 1,000. I don't know if it got to 1,500, but if you include all master classes where we would always perform, you include all that. Yeah, you're talking probably about 1,500 or maybe even a little bit more than that in my 14 years. I didn't miss it. Now I would give anything to be able to play. I mean, bad brass quintet arrangements right now would be amazing. But again, that fear was not well placed. So we are all afraid of the future at times, of course. The only time this is really a problem is when that fear leads to an attachment to the present, which ends up preventing us from moving our work forward. That's how we stagnate, and that's how we prevent ourselves from changing the world however we are meant to change it. My advice would be to periodically ask yourself, what is it about the future that I fear, and spend some time with it. That can be done in meditation. That can be done with the help of a coach. That can be just sitting alone with your thoughts, which if you're like me, you're not getting a ton of time to just sit alone with your thoughts as I look nervously over my monitor to see if my kid's going to bust through here like 2 minutes before I finish this thing. So I probably shouldn't vamp. I should just finish this. If you do this, you'll be surprised at how those fears may be leading to an attachment to the present, which in turn can be holding you back on a surprising number of levels. Thank you to everyone for listening, subscribing, leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM, and simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. TEM is produced by Will Houchin and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and myself, Andrew Hitz. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our new website, tem.fm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.